When people discuss the Trump administration, a few names usually come up first. Donald Trump himself, obviously. Maybe Elon Musk, thanks to his headline-grabbing involvement with the Department of Energy, or even Doge, depending on who you ask. But strangely, one name rarely gets mentioned: Vice President J.D. Vance. Despite holding one of the most powerful offices in the country, Vance has managed to stay nearly invisible. And that silence, it's starting to look less like a strategy and more like exile. Unlike previous vice presidents who led press briefings and shaped policy debates, JD operates quietly behind the scenes, rarely stepping into the spotlight unless controversy drags him there. And lately, controversy has been more of a burden than a benefit. From his provocative stances on family values to his divisive views on foreign policy, Vance has never shied away from stirring the pot, but it hasn't exactly earned him influence. At the top, insiders report a growing distance between Vance and Trump, a cold shoulder rarely seen between a president and his deputy. Rumors swirl about humiliation, political isolation, and even early retirement. Is it burnout? Or has Vance realized he was never truly part of Trump's inner circle? What makes this story more fascinating isn't just who J.D. Vance is, but how far he's fallen from the path he once envisioned. He wasn't meant to be a background player, but in the Trump political machine, even the vice president can find himself sidelined, mocked, and potentially replaced. And that's where it gets really interesting, because JD's shift from critic to right-hand man wasn't just surprising, it was controversial. Before becoming Trump's VP, Vance was one of Trump's loudest critics. He once called Trump cultural heroin for the Republican base, a man feeding the country a dangerous fantasy. But political ambition has a way of changing convictions. Not only did Vance switch sides, he dove headfirst into Trumpism, becoming a vocal figure in the far-right movement. The transformation was so stark, some saw it as betrayal. Others, simply survival. His book Hillbilly Elegy painted him as a working-class intellectual with strong Midwestern roots, a man who understood the struggles of forgotten America. But once in the political spotlight, he pivoted sharply. And what followed was anything but subtle. In interviews and speeches, Vance began promoting ideas more fitting for shock jock radio than presidential discourse. He claimed America was run by childless cat ladies, sparking outrage across political lines. He doubled down, citing leaders like Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and AOC as disconnected from the future because they didn't have biological children. For Vance, parenthood wasn't just a personal choice. It was a moral and patriotic obligation. He didn't stop there. Teachers, activists, and union leaders like Randy Weingarten also came under fire. Anyone who didn't fit his narrow definition of family and leadership was deemed a threat to America's future. Supporters saw fearless truth-telling. Critics saw cruelty cloaked in populism. Despite the backlash, Vance stood his ground. But behind the scenes, something else was brewing. A growing sense that Trump and his inner circle weren't taking him seriously. Because when the spotlight finally did shine on JD, it wasn't to elevate him, it was to sideline him. And inside the White House, that became painfully clear. For a vice president, proximity to the president is everything. It's not just about influencing policy, it's about being in the room where decisions happen. But insiders say Vance hasn't just been excluded, he's been quietly pushed to the margins. And the signs haven't been subtle. At rallies and interviews, Trump has repeatedly dismissed questions about Vance's future in the GOP. When asked if JD could be his 2028 successor, Trump's answer was a blunt no. No diplomatic sidestepping, just a cold, flat refusal, followed by vague praise for other talented people. For Vance, who switched his political identity to align with Trump, this public snub stung and sent a clear message. Trump's inner circle has also shown shifting loyalties. Key staffers reportedly brief other GOP figures more often than they do the vice president. One source close to the administration said, JD gets invited to meetings, but no one really listens. Whether this is strategic or personal disdain, the effect is the same. Vance is there, but not in power. While Trump loves playing kingmaker, he's also known for humiliating those who try too hard to win his favor. At an Ohio rally, Trump mocked Vance for craving his approval. JD wants my support so badly, he joked to the crowd. That moment was supposed to help Vance, but instead, it branded him as Trump's errand boy. The humiliation wasn't only public, it was personal. Though Vance holds the title behind closed doors, he's seen as expendable. In Trump's world, loyalty is one way. And when someone more useful appears, you're sidelined without hesitation. Meanwhile, another figure was rapidly gaining power, visibility, and perhaps Trump's full trust. If Vance was already on shaky ground inside the Trump administration, his stance on foreign policy might have been the final straw. Specifically, his vocal skepticism about U.S. aid to Ukraine, which drew criticism not just from Democrats, but also conservatives with global influence, most notably Bill Browder. Browder, a former hedge fund manager turned international human rights advocate, is no stranger to confrontation. After his lawyer was tortured to death in a Russian prison, Browder dedicated his life to exposing Kremlin corruption. So when Vance opposed the Repo Act, a bipartisan bill to seize frozen Russian assets to aid Ukraine's rebuilding, Browder didn't hold back. He accused Vance of parroting Kremlin propaganda. Senator J.D. Vance is now repeating Vladimir's exact words. He said bluntly, "This wasn't just political disagreement, it was a direct charge of enabling Russian messaging." Tensions flared during a tense White House meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. What was meant to be a diplomatic discussion turned into a shouting match. Vance reportedly scolded Zelensky for being ungrateful for U.S. support, accusing him of undermining trust by airing disputes publicly. Trump backed Vance publicly. But insiders say the clash embarrassed the administration behind closed doors. Even worse, the meeting ended with a canceled press conference and a flurry of social media posts. Zelensky reaffirmed Ukraine's gratitude, while Vance suggested the president wasn't ready for peace and had disrespected the Oval Office. The incident damaged America's diplomatic standing and isolated Vance further in the White House. Some praised his firmness, others saw recklessness risking vital alliances. As the Ukraine crisis deepened, another name surfaced repeatedly in strategy sessions, press briefings, and key appointments, someone clearly being groomed for bigger roles. While Vance faded into the background, Marco Rubio was everywhere. In a highly unusual move, Rubio collected multiple titles simultaneously: Secretary of State, Acting U.S. Aid Administrator, Interim National Security Advisor, and even Acting Archivist of the National Archives. 4 roles at once. Some saw overreach, others saw a deliberate power shift. Trump's decision to stack Rubio with responsibility was about more than trust. It was about visibility. At every press event, summit, and late-night interview, Rubio was front and center, defending Trump's policies, shaping U.S. diplomacy, and embodying the administration's foreign policy face. Meanwhile, Vance posted about obscure Doge appointments and sparked viral debates about dog breeds. The contrast was glaring and intentional. Even Vice President Vance couldn't resist a jab. After Rubio's Vatican visit, Vance tweeted a sarcastic comment about the papacy being Rubio's next logical promotion. The internet quickly dubbed Rubio Pope Marco III and Secretary of the Universe. Beneath the humor, tensions simmered. Rubio was rising fast and had Trump's full backing. Rubio's ascent was notable for how closely he aligned with Trump's global vision. He echoed Trump's tough stance on China and Iran, supported a controversial Ukraine mineral deal, and navigated forever war rhetoric while championing U.S. influence. The two seemed less like president and appointee and more like partners, shaping a post-Trump world order. Inside the White House, it became clear Rubio wasn't filling gaps. He was being trusted, elevated, and groomed. In every way, Vance wasn't. As Rubio gained momentum, one question spread like wildfire in Washington. Was J.D. Vance ever truly the chosen one, or just a placeholder for someone more presidential? Despite his many titles and controversies, Vance now finds himself in political limbo. He's vice president, but it feels more ceremonial than influential. In a White House dominated by figures like Trump, Musk, and Rubio, Vance has become what no politician wants to be: forgettable. It's not for lack of passion. His fiery rhetoric on family, education, and national identity still makes headlines. But passion without power is just noise. That's where Vance stands today, on the edge of relevance, being pushed aside by louder, more visible players. Even Trump treats him more as a utility than a partner. From mocking him publicly to refusing to name him a future leader, Trump's message is clear. Vance earned a seat at the table, but never the head. And the ultimate insult? Trump's open admiration for Rubio, a man with real political capital, deep foreign policy expertise, and perhaps most importantly, Trump's trust. While Vance navigates insults and backhanded compliments, Rubio collects promotions and primetime interviews. So where does that leave Vance? Still in office, giving speeches, sparking online reactions. But within the halls of power, he's become something else. A placeholder, a cog in Trump's ever-growing machine. Whether he leaves on his own or is quietly replaced remains to be seen. But one thing's clear. J.D. Vance didn't just lose control of his political story, he may never have had it at all.